My desk mate, Helen, got bullied. I collected evidence under pressure and got the bully reported to the police. Then, Helen turned around and gave the bully a letter of forgiveness. So, the bully took all the anger out on me. I got cornered in an alley and beaten to death. Now that I'm back, Helen cried to me about being bullied, and I smiled and said to her, I heard that at this age, boys show they like someone by bullying them. Maybe he likes you. Why else would he only bully you? Her face turned red all the way to her ears. Yep, that's right. A jerk and a girl like her deserve each other. I turned on the faucet, scooped up some water, and splashed my face. The cold water made me shiver, but I found myself laughing. It's not a dream. I actually came back to life. I shut off the water, wiped my face, and left the bathroom. There weren't many students walking around outside, so when I got to the stairwell, I heard voices from the rooftop. Turns out, I came back to the day I discovered Helen being bullied by Eric. Last time, I followed the voices up to the rooftop, chased off Eric and his lackeys, and took Helen to the head teacher. The head teacher listened, said he'd investigate, and then shoot us out of the office. Back then, I waited for a long time, but we never got any results. During that period, Eric's bullying of Helen got worse. Her hair got cut, her clothes were torn. Getting cornered in the bathroom became normal for her. She said it was punishment from Eric for her tattling. That's when I realized how much Eric's family's donations, 2 buildings, a playground, and $10 million, mattered to the school. They mattered enough for nobody to care about a bullied girl. The heroism of my younger self shouted inside me. So I braved the pressure and collected evidence of Eric's bullying for the police. When the police praised me for my bravery, I felt like a hero. But 3 days later, reality hit me like a truck. Helen wrote a letter forgiving Eric. I questioned Helen, searching her eyes for fear of being threatened, but found nothing. She told me Eric was still a minor, and his life shouldn't be tainted. I suddenly felt powerless, my anger turning into a bitter smile. The night after leaving the police station, Eric and some guys cornered me in a deserted alley. I cowered in the corner as they rained punches and kicks on me. My life ended in that dark night. That was the price for helping Helen. I can still feel the utter despair before my death. I didn't do anything wrong, so why was I the one who died? So when I stood at the corner of the stairs again, I headed straight for the classroom without hesitation. I'm going to cherish this second chance, study hard, get into my dream college, and live a good life. Helen walked into the classroom just as the bell rang. I glanced at her, her hair was a bit messy, her right cheek swollen, and her uniform faintly smelled of smoke. It wasn't pleasant. Instinctively, I sat a little farther from her, then opened my book, listening carefully to the teacher. In my past life, I spent almost every day figuring out how to help Helen and gather evidence of her bullying, leaving no time to study. This made my already average grades take a nosedive, and the last exam before I died, I was third to last in the class. One class went by quickly, and during the break, I quickly jotted down the key points the teacher covered. Halfway through, Helen tugged at my sleeve. I turned around, her innocent doe eyes looking at me. I asked, "What's up?" Her eyes started to redden, but she said nothing. I pulled my sleeve from her grasp. "If there's nothing, I'll get back to my notes." After writing a few more words, she tugged on my sleeve again. Ignoring her, I kept writing. When I finally finished, I noticed she still held my sleeve. Beginning to feel annoyed, I tugged it back, a bit forcefully, and then tears suddenly streamed down her face. Her crying drew odd looks my way, and I was speechless. I hadn't bullied her, yet she got everyone thinking I did. And here I thought I should help her because of her poor background and pitied her. Being kind to the real bully and attacking someone who helped her. "Helen, you sure have a knack for playing." I just wanted to go through school peacefully without getting involved in her mess, but if she wants to play like this, fine, let's see who outplays who. Just then, the head teacher entered the classroom. When he saw Helen crying, instead of the impatience he had when he sent me out of his office in my past life. He asked her kindly, "Helen, what's wrong?" Helen looked at me hesitantly, biting her lip, pretending she was too scared to speak. Oh, what an actress. I suppressed my annoyance and said first, "Teacher, when Helen came back from break last class, she smelled of smoke. I suspect she was smoking. Smoking at school is serious." The teacher's expression turned serious. Helen immediately denied, "I wasn't. Don't make things up." I pretended to cover my nose, but I really smelled it. If you don't believe me, you can ask the surrounding classmates. Once I mentioned them, everyone immediately pulled back their gaze. I knew these classmates well. In my past life, I had asked for help and no one ever agreed. They weren't wrong. When choosing between helping me or dealing with Eric, smart people stay out of it. The silence of those around seemed to confirm my suspicion to the teacher. But it wasn't enough to draw a conclusion. Feigning surprise, I pointed to Helen's clothes. "Hey, that looks like a burn mark and there's ash on it." Helen hurriedly covered her clothes, and now I didn't even have to say anything. All suspicious looks shifted back to Helen. The teacher tapped the podium. "Helen, don't think just because you have good grades you can break school rules. After class, come with me to the office and explain this." Helen nodded reluctantly, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw her hand clench into a tight fist. I chuckled to myself, thinking, feeling the sting now, huh? After class, before the homeroom teacher took Helen away, I seized the chance to get my seat moved to the back row. As Helen left the classroom, she shot me a sharp look. It seemed like she had been unhappy with me for a long time. Absent-mindedly spinning a pen, I went over all my interactions with her in my head but couldn't figure out what I might have done to her. "Stop making that noise. It's annoying." The clear voice startled me. I quickly set down my pen and turned to apologize. "Sorry about that. Almost forgot, at the last row of our class sits Dino, the top student in the entire school, also known as number 1. On the first day of school, he got himself placed in the back, wanting peace and quiet. But there are still a few desks between us." I shrugged. Sensitive guy, I guess. Yet, thinking about it, it's the first semester of senior year. Having this genius beside me could be a real lifesaver for boosting my scores before the college entrance exams. Coincidentally, I had a question I couldn't solve, so I grabbed my workbook and ran over to him enthusiastically. "Hey, I was just fidgeting with the pen, 'cause I couldn't solve this problem. Maybe you could teach me? I'd be out of your hair in no time, please." He looked up at me like I was an idiot. "Oh, I get it. Folks like me with average IQ must seem like idiots to geniuses like him. But, hey, I've been through worse and survived, so I'm not afraid of any looks." I stared right back at him with all my guts. He blinked in surprise, then quickly looked away. After glancing at the question, he scribbled on some scratch paper. Once done, he tore it off, slipped it into my workbook, and tossed it back without another glance my way. Grateful, I went back to my seat and carefully studied his solution. A genius, indeed. His way of solving problems was enlightening. As I put my pen down to stretch, I noticed the girl in front of me watching in admiration. "Something up?" She shook her head and gave me a thumbs up. "Nancy, you're the first person Dino's ever tutored on anything." "Huh?" Helen, next to her, explained, "No one can handle his looks. You're the first. Just need thicker skin, I guess. Actually, he's really nice." His method was straightforward, which is perfect for average folks like me. "Wanna check it out?" They nodded vigorously. So I handed over Dino's notes, and they took them back as if they were treasures. After a good stretch, I noticed Helen coming back into the classroom. Her eyes were red and swollen like she had a good cry. Probably got scolded by the teacher. Now she was glaring at me even more fiercely, blaming me again. I shrugged in response. Honestly, she could have just told the teacher how Eric bullied her when I pointed out her smoking incident. That would have made more sense. Last time, It was me who dragged her to the teacher, but this time I didn't bother, and she didn't speak up herself. Had she never intended to tell the teacher about it? By hiding the bullying, could she even gain anything from Eric? I tapped my head, thinking, forget it. It's hard to understand someone with such twisted views anyway. My first day after being reborn was pretty eventful. After school ended, I happily dashed out with my backpack. From a distance, I spotted Dad waiting at our usual spot. I weaved through the crowd to reach him and clung to his arm. He grinned and asked, "Something good happened today?" "You're extra clingy." I pouted playfully, acting like I was going to let go. "If you don't like it, I'll just cling to Mom at home. Bet she's cooked something yummy tonight." Dad playfully flicked my forehead. "You little chatterbox." We joked around and soon reached the car. As we got in, Dad suddenly remembered something. "Why aren't you with your classmate today?" He meant Helen. Ever since we became friends in senior year, I'd made an effort to get closer by sharing snacks and hanging out. Knowing no one was picking her up, I'd always offer her a ride with Dad. Smiling, I told Dad, "She said it's not good to trouble us all the time, so she won't hitch a ride anymore." Dad understood. "She's got quite the pride, that kid." As the car started moving away from school, I felt a bit uneasy, as if someone was watching me. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, I couldn't spot anyone suspicious. The feeling faded after we turned a corner. I squinted, thinking about Dad's comment on pride. Our school is a prestigious one, with most students coming from well-off families. Helen acted just like everyone else, so I assumed her family's situation was similar. But one rainy evening, after we dropped her off nearby, I remembered she didn't have an umbrella. Curious about how far she had to go, I asked Dad to turn back so I could lend her one. We circled the neighborhood until we saw her enter an old apartment complex. I jumped out and caught up with her, handing over the umbrella. She didn't thank me, but instead reminded me not to tell anyone she lived there. Later, she subtly brought it up a few times. I brushed it off, saying I wouldn't mention it. Could it be Helen's resentment towards me comes from knowing I discovered where she lives? It seems too strange. After distancing myself from Helen, I felt a lot more refreshed. The classmates around me are quite easygoing. Dino still acts distant, but he helps when I ask him questions. This must be what people online mean by surrounding yourself with positive energy. It strengthens your aura. Even though I was once messed up by Helen and Eric, I've managed to avoid the same risks in this life. I won't overthink things that haven't even happened. It's just a shame Helen doesn't see it that way. A few days later, she approached me during a break. She wanted to pull me into the stairwell, but I was cautious and told her we could talk in the classroom. She frowned, saying it wasn't convenient, so we met halfway and stopped outside the classroom. "Go ahead," I said, "I have unfinished work." "Nancy, I wanted to explain about the other day. When the homeroom teacher pointed me out, I was scared and looked at you, almost unintentionally. I thought you'd help me, but I didn't mean for things to be misunderstood." Is she trying to make peace? I don't really buy it. Just say what you have to say. What's there to be afraid of? The homeroom teacher isn't going to eat you. My question seemed to throw her off her prepared script. If there's nothing else, I should head back. Wait. She suddenly grabbed me. The truth is, I was bullied that day. Is she hoping I'll help her like I did in the past? And then get burned again? What is she even trying to get from Eric? It can't possibly be him, can it? I got a chill. Maybe it is possible. I decided to test her. Was it a guy or girl? How did they bully you, just messing around? Did they bully anyone else? Helen pouted and replied, "It was a guy, and he's only picking on me." Hilarious. She confessed so easily. I put on a friendly smile. I heard that at this age, boys show their affection by picking on someone. Do you think he might like you? Otherwise, why would he only bully you? Helen's voice went up a notch. Where did you hear that? I raised an eyebrow. It's in La Dame aux Camélias. Marguerite wrote in her diary that the only proof of love was insult. The more you torment me, the more exalted I will seem when the truth comes out. Helen's face turned beet red. Looks like she imagined herself in that story. People need to read more. Incomplete knowledge gets you derailed so easily. I'm so envious of you, I said, with your good grades, and looks, and guys pursuing you. Unlike me, struggling over one question all day. When will I ever catch up with you? Helen beamed at my compliment and my admission of being inferior to her. Since she enjoyed it, I'd make sure to say it more often. Helen acted like nothing happened and frequently approached me, even asking me to return to my old seat. As if. The seat next to Dino is prime. I improved by 3 whole ranks in the recent tests. Why would I give that up? Helen, you've always been top 5 in the class, so you probably don't understand the struggles we average students face. I have to treat myself like a monk, distancing myself just to make a tiny bit of progress. You have no idea how much pressure I felt sitting next to you. Your excellence is blinding. Helen was quite pleased with what I said about her excellence and stopped bothering me about the seat issue. Then she left. Just as I lowered my head to continue working, Dino's voice caught my attention. Nancy, stay away from her. It took me a moment to realize he was talking about Helen. I unconsciously looked over at her, and she gave me a rather unfriendly look but quickly turned away. Smart people can see through others so easily. If I were this clever, maybe I wouldn't have died in the past. Yeah, sure. Dino handed me his test papers, asked me if you get stuck on anything. I took them with a big grin. Life went on smoothly, and finals were approaching, so everyone was focused on studying hard. Even Helen hadn't approached me in several days, which gave me more time to memorize a few English essays. One day, the classmate in front of me whispered that she had witnessed something unbelievable. Nancy, you gotta call me princess, then I'll spill. I rolled my eyes and kept translating ancient texts. I saw Helen with Eric. I looked up quickly. Where'd you see them? What were they doing? Please, don't let it be bullying again. I don't want any more drama. She gave me this knowing look, just now, during the break at the snack store. It wasn't just me, a lot of people saw. Everyone's wondering how they got together. I felt like I'd been struck by lightning. Helen really did get with Eric. I mean, Eric is a popular guy in school, but with only a few months till college entrance exams, is it really the time to date? I exchanged a glance with the classmate, both of us sharing the same disbelief. While I was still processing all this, a hand suddenly held out a bottle of milk to me. I looked up to see Helen with a sweet smile. Nancy, you always brought me snacks. Now it's my turn to treat you. Her face radiated sweetness, and a bit of showing off. So I played along. I graciously accepted and pretended to notice the bag in her hand. Are those for me too? Before she could answer, I reached for her bag. She held on tight but couldn't match my determination. Within moments, the bag was in my hands. Helen, you're too kind, everything here's my favorite, thanks. Her smile almost disappeared before she muttered, don't mention it, and ran off. The classmate in front of me gave me a thumbs up, and I handed her the bag. Help yourself. Ha. Nancy, you're pretty generous. Eric being a popular figure made his relationship with Helen school gossip fast. Helen basked in the attention and stopped coming around as much, but whenever she did, she couldn't hide her smugness. She really reminded me of a rooster who just won a fight. Though I never understood what she was competing with me for, if it made her happy, I was fine with it. In many reincarnation stories, protagonists go through so much to get revenge, but here, I just need to watch. No effort required, she's doing a pretty good job of sinking herself alone. Does she really think being with Eric is a good thing? Does she seriously believe people think they're some fairy tale couple? My final exam results came out. I moved up 2 spots, now ranked 20th in the class. My parents were so thrilled they took me to a 5-star restaurant. Halfway through the meal, I went to the restroom and passed by a really noisy private room. The door wasn't fully closed, so I glanced in out of curiosity. When I saw Eric, my breath caught in my throat painfully. A nearby server quickly asked if I was all right. I shook my head and leaned against the wall for support. The hallway was brightly lit, but I still felt like I was stuck in that alley, with no way out. I leaned against the wall and took a while to pull myself together. Just as I was about to walk away, Eric's words drifted to my ears. "Girl? Just having fun with her." She came to me. No reason not to play along, and besides, she looks nice. How did she approach me? I was smoking on the roof, and she ran up and said students shouldn't smoke, gave me an earful. Couldn't stand it, so I slapped her. Later, I messed with her a few more times. Next thing I know, she confessed to me. I didn't plan to say yes, but she hugged and kissed me, and I couldn't resist. Her face is pretty and her figure is great. I wasn't losing out. I clenched my fists. So from the start, it was Helen who approached Eric. Last life, she knew I misunderstood but didn't explain and let things snowball until it was almost too late for Eric to back out. Only then did she come forward with that statement that screwed me but saved Eric. This way, she could gain advantages from Eric by acting like she saved him. There was no bullying, it was all her tricks. But whatever, if she wanted to mess with herself, fine. Why drag me into it? But now she's my girlfriend, so I can't let people bully her without retaliating. Someone teased by the side, who's bold enough to mess with our sis-in-law. A girl, I think her name's Nancy. I called everyone here to ask for help getting back at her. They continued plotting in the room, and I was practically boiling with anger. I never knew, in both past and present lives, that Helen wished for my downfall. And there I was, naively thinking if I stayed away, I'd be fine. How naive of me, showing such resilience. But even being slow to catch on, I've finally figured some things out. Helen's jealous of me. She does well in school and looks great, so she feels superior to me. But then she learned I live in a downtown high-rise. That unless he's on a business trip or swamped, my dad picks me up from school. And that mom cooks every meal with care and often sends homemade snacks with me. She started realizing I had way more than she did. So she wanted Eric, this strong support, to patch up her shaky sense of superiority. Maybe even to launch herself upward. I took out my phone and opened the chat with Helen. "Helen, your birthday's coming up. What present do you want?" If she knew Eric wasn't actually that reliable of support, what would she do? "Anything's fine, as long as it's from you, I'll like it." Really? You better mean it when I give it to you. During winter break, I worked hard to improve my grades. Seeing me study so diligently, Dad said he found me a top-notch tutor through his connections. I gave him a happy hug, but seeing it was Dino, my smile faded a bit. Dino dutifully pulled out the final exam papers to tutor me, but I stopped him. "Did your family go broke? You moonlighting as a tutor to pay debts?" Dino gave me a sarcastic look. "Even if the school closed, my family wouldn't go broke. I just happened to be there when your dad visited my uncle. They talked about kids' education. My uncle bragged about my grades. Your dad jumped in, saying his daughter's grades weren't great, asked if I'd tutor you, and I agreed. I bit my pen cap. Oh, I see. Thanks for helping." Dino adjusted his glasses. "No problem. Reviewing basics now and then is good too." I pressed my lips together and dove into the homework. Dino taught in the mornings, left assignments for the afternoon, and came back the next day to review them. His assignments were really tough, like pushing me too hard, but I dared not argue, given how his icy words cut deeper than any winter chill. Days passed, and soon Helen's birthday was just 3 days away. A friend at the desk in front often texted updates on Helen and Eric, how lately, they're inseparable, constantly at the movies or karaoke bars. Helen knows Eric loves bikes and joins him on rides despite winter's chill. The friend also mentioned how Eric is footing the bill for Helen's birthday bash, the venue, decor, everything. Seems Eric does have some feelings for her after all. I took a cab to the city's rich neighborhood, finding a villa via the address on my phone. Ringing the bell, a polite staff let me inside. In the living room, Shirley was already waiting on the sofa. Although she was the same age, she had a mature air about her. "Spill it, what do you want?" "I'm here to give you a reason why you shouldn't get engaged to Eric's family." She gave me a skeptical look, signaling me to continue. I sat up straight. "You're in an international school, so you may not know this, but the hottest topic in our school is Eric's romantic life. Sure, it's easy to catch up on that if you ask around. But what Eric plans next won't be as easy to discover." I took out my phone and played the audio I recorded outside the restaurant booth last time. Shirley listened and raised an eyebrow slightly. Didn't think Eric was actually good to his girlfriend." My right eyelid twitched a couple of times. "No way, is she actually admiring Eric?" "Listen carefully," I said. "He's only good to her to get at me." "Don't look at me like that, makes me feel underestimated." I relaxed. Thank goodness. "So when are they making a move?" I shook my head. "Not sure, but there's a perfect chance in 3 days at Helen's birthday party. They'll probably all be there." "You mean, even if they don't plan it, you'll push them into making a move?" "Yep. If you need help, just ask." "Got it." We sealed the deal, and as I was about to leave, Shirley asked, "How did you know I wasn't interested in marrying into the family?" I answered honestly. "When I heard the rumors about both our families, I Googled and watched your high school entrance speech. You confidently declared that you entered with the top grade in the school, and you'd graduate the same. Early comments called you arrogant, but later on, all they did was praise you. You've been top in every exam so far. So I figured, becoming Eric's wife might not be your thing. Being an independent woman suits you more." She suddenly laughed. "You're kind of cute." I returned a smile. "Thanks for the compliment." After that, I quickly grabbed a cab home. Some people plan to take over their family's business at 18, while others worry about not solving math problems and getting scolded by teachers. Helen's 18th birthday party was set in a private villa on the outskirts of town. At the entrance, there was a huge photo of Helen. The walkway was lined with vibrant, almost too perfect roses. Helen, in designer clothes, linked arms with Eric and beamed brightly. When she saw me, she looked surprised for a moment, then her smile turned even brighter. "Nancy, did you do your makeup today? I almost didn't recognize you. It's the first time I've seen you dressed up so nicely." It kind of felt like she was saying I was stealing her spotlight. "Yeah, I practiced for a while just to attend your birthday. I had to, since you're my best friend." "But really, the makeup? I got it done at a salon. It was expensive, cost me $500. "I'm so glad you came, and dressed up too. Oh, let me introduce you, this is my boyfriend, Eric." I greeted him politely. Eric didn't look at me too kindly. After all, in Helen's eyes, I was a bad influence. Eric's friends didn't seem friendly either. They stood behind him, giving me greasy looks. I bet they were the same guys from the booth last time. Suddenly, I regretted dressing up today. After I gave my gift, I wandered to the buffet area. I picked up a small cake, surprised at how good it tasted, so I grabbed a few more. Someone at the table leaned over and showed me a financial gesture. I heard Eric spent this much on the party. I widened my eyes, covering my mouth. Not out of shock, but it seemed a shame. That 6-figure amount was probably going to be wasted. As night fell, the villa was lit up. Fireworks exploded in the sky, reaching a peak of excitement. Eric popped open a champagne bottle, spraying the crowd with bubbly foam. Then someone opened another bottle, and another. It really was an unrestrained celebration. Even I, hiding in a corner, wasn't safe from the champagne spray. After eating another small cake, someone handed me a drink. He raised an eyebrow. For your thirst. It was one of Eric's friends. I took the glass and gave a shy smile, unconsciously touching my earlobe. Then I suddenly exclaimed, my earring's gone. Balancing the glass, I bent down, using the light to search the floor, but no luck. I looked pitifully at Eric's friend. What do I do? It's a custom piece my mom had made, one of a kind. My expression seemed to trigger his hormones. Don't worry, I'll help you look. And with that, he bent down and started searching. I squatted down and slowly lifted the tablecloth, revealing a hidden drink I had prepared. Halfway through lifting the tablecloth, Helen's voice came from behind. Nancy, what are you doing? Could she have caught on? My heart leaped into my throat, and I forgot to breathe for a moment. Cold sweat crept onto my forehead. To calm down, I tightly gripped the tablecloth before finally easing off. Noticing my odd behavior, Helen walked over. She reached out her hand, and there lay my earring. Nancy, were you looking for this? My body tensed, heart clenched as if squeezed by fear. I had stashed the earring in my coat pocket, so why was it with her? Did she know my plan for tonight? She couldn't, I had been so discreet. I stood up, trembling, and took back the earring, placing it against my heart. Finally found it. Eric's friend chimed in. Sis, where did you find it? We've been searching. Helen laughed. Just saw it in the dressing room and brought it over right away. So it was just a coincidence. But wow, I'd been careless, not noticing it had fallen out. I exhaled slowly. Thanks, Helen. Before I could relax my tense body, Helen noticed the drink in my hand. What's that drink? Her gaze darted between me and Eric's friend, a teasing glint in her eyes. With a playful grin, Eric's friend said, I offered it. Helen seemed disappointed but spoke with malice, but Nancy, it's still full. He's Eric's friend, you should do me the honor, right? Their stares felt like snakes fixing on me. I clenched my drink tightly. But at the same time, I breathed a sigh of relief. Shirley tracked down the friend who was with Eric at the restaurant that day. She reached out to him and gave him some advice on how to get a girl to comply. He listened and acted on it. Honestly, I wasn't sure if my drink had been spiked, so I planned to switch drinks, act drunk, and go to a room with Eric's friend. That way, I could get them all in trouble. But now, Helen was urging me to drink with a teasing tone. I was almost certain the drink was spiked, and I didn't need to keep acting. I moved closer to the window, making sure the people outside could see me tuck my hair behind my ear. That was the signal. Then, I gently swirled the drink in my hand and smiled at both of them. Sorry, I'm on antibiotics, can't drink tonight. Helen said nothing, but Eric's friend's face fell immediately. I was a bit intimidated by him. He might have been one of my murderers in the past life. The alley was too dark, I only recognized Eric's voice. I didn't see anyone else's face. But now, I had to stay calm. It was different from my past life, someone would soon rescue me. So, I needed to hold on. Eric's friend walked over. You really gonna blow me off like this? I shot back, no way, you know mixing antibiotics and alcohol is bad. Plus, I'm your sister-in-law's good friend. Is this how you treat me? Helen teased. Nancy, just say you don't want to drink. He's not so petty, you don't need an excuse. I raised an eyebrow. You don't believe me? Do I have to drink a bit to convince you? The liquid rippled slightly. They were about to say something when I slowly moved the glass closer to my lips, asking sadly, do you really want me to drink it? When the glass nearly touched my lips, a glint of excitement appeared in Helen's eyes. Just then, the villa door burst open with a bang, and a bunch of SWAT officers stormed in. Everybody, stand still. Helen's face froze in shock. The villa went silent. These were just young adults, no amount of money could prepare them for this. After a sweep, the officers didn't seem to find anything at first. Then someone started packing up all the alcohol. Opened, unopened, they took everything, including the glass in my hand. I finally felt relieved. All that effort holding onto the glass paid off. I was afraid it might spill. Until they got the results, we were all held in the villa. It was completely surrounded by SWAT, nobody in or out. As the night wore on, the girl beside me started dozing off on my shoulder. I glanced around. Most people looked angry but didn't dare speak. Who would have thought a birthday party would lead to a police raid? The birthday girl, Helen, was leaning against Eric, but Eric seemed distracted. He had reasons to be worried. The villa was his, and he signed the contracts for the decor. He brought the alcohol. If anything were found, he'd be fully responsible. Worse, he knew his friends smuggled in the illegal stuff and knew what it was for. That was enough to get them arrested. After what seemed like an eternity, the door finally opened, and in walked everyone's parents behind the officers. The girl next to me burst into tears, stumbling towards her parents. I never intended to drag innocent people into this, but the real culprits deserved it. I was the last one out. Even though I'd pre-warned my parents, they looked worried, with shadows under their eyes like they hadn't slept. Once they saw me, they rushed over, asking if I was okay. I gently held my mom's hand. "Mom, I'm okay." She hugged me tightly. "Thank God you're safe." As I hugged her back, I noticed Dino standing behind her. My heart skipped. What was he doing here? Mom seemed to remember Dino, too. She let go and said, "Dino came early today. When the police called us over, he came along." I awkwardly apologized. "I haven't finished yesterday's homework." He replied, "It's okay, go rest first." Wait, really? Dino's serious expression didn't seem like he was joking. He was right though. I hadn't slept all night, so I wouldn't be able to focus in class. Before leaving, I glanced back and noticed Helen glaring at me from the doorway. Her eyes were filled with jealousy, resentment, and confusion. I smiled and turned back to walk out arm in arm with my parents. Behind me, the villa door shut with a thud. From this moment, everyone who had been a threat to my life was destined for jail. Eric got bailed out. Unexpected, but made sense. He pinned all the blame on Helen. Eric's family, being business savvy, didn't confront Helen but approached her family instead. The terms they offered were impossible for her family to refuse. So, whether Helen liked it or not, she had to sign her name. The day Helen was taken in, her family moved to the trendiest district. That same day, Eric was released and put on a plane to another country by his family. Shirley's family decided against an alliance with Eric's and seized a huge project from them. It seemed like everyone, except Helen, benefited from this. I got a call from Helen wanting to meet. I refused without a second thought. Why would I meet her? To hear how pitiful her past was and that she had no choice but to mess with me? Why not go after Eric? He was a far better target. Or maybe to listen to her confess she regretted letting jealousy ruin her life. But I didn't come back to hear a simple apology. She seemed unwilling to give up and even sent me a letter. When I saw the sender, I tossed it straight into the trash. On New Year's Eve, our family of 3 sat in the living room waiting for the new year to arrive. The previous New Year's Eve, I was lying in an alley, looking at the distant city lights. Back then, I was wondering why there wasn't a single light shining on me. Thankfully, I pulled myself out of the pit. A warm house, bright lights, and my dear family, I have everything I need. In the blink of an eye, the new semester began. In the placement test at the start of the term, I made significant progress. Turns out, Dino's efforts weren't in vain. At the college entrance exam pep rally, the teacher asked everyone to write down their dream school, put it in an envelope, and store it in a safe at the back of the classroom. I carefully wrote down New York University, School of Law. With my current standing in the top 10 of the class, if I push myself hard, I can definitely get in. Honestly, I'm not too shabby. After all, I'm in a top class at a top high school. Time flew by as I devoted myself to my studies. In no time, it was the day of the college entrance exams. Mom wore a cheongsam and brought sunflowers to send me off. Dad didn't say much, only told me to keep calm just before I entered the exam hall. I gave each of them a hug, then turned and walked towards the exam room. Wait for my good news. I got into my dream school, surpassing the cutoff score by 20 points. My parents were very supportive of my choice. They have always supported me, working hard to provide me with a good life and shielding me from the storms. Dino got a full scholarship to Stanford, while Shirley, who once thought of studying abroad, chose to stay in the country. Her choice is understandable. If she didn't stay, she couldn't manage things at home. She was curious about why I decided to study law. I jokingly told her, in the future, you'll take over Eric's family businesses, and I'll make sure to put Eric's family in jail. We looked at each other and laughed. 6 years later, at the customs of New York City's International Airport, I approached Eric just as he cleared security, and showed him the arrest warrant. I'm Nancy, a prosecutor from the district attorney's office. You're suspected of being involved in a corporate corruption case. Please come with us.